Okay, you have a song already that you want to edit. So let me just go ahead and play the simple song that I have up here right now. Alright, there's a total of 11 measures in this particular song, with the 11th measure being the end. And it basically consists of an intro, which has one measure, a rock pattern, which has 4 measures for a total of 5, and then it has a hard rock pattern, which has a total of 4 measures for a total of 9, and then it has an ending ending pattern with a total of 1 measure for a total of 10, and then you've got the ending to total 11 measures for the entire song. Now, inserting a pattern in between patterns that already exist is relatively easy, and it's an easy concept to visualize in your head. So basically, you go to the measure where you want to insert the pattern, right? So if it's a measure that's a beginning of a new pattern, it's pretty intuitive. And by the way, when you hit the plus and minus buttons, you go to the next pattern. So for example, I'm at the very beginning of the song. If I want to go to where the next pattern begins, I hit the plus button, okay? So if I want to go to where the next pattern begins, I hit the plus button again. It begins at the 6th measure. So I want to insert a pattern now in between where the rock pattern and the hard rock pattern exists. I just hit the insert button, and I'm going to insert the funk pattern, which has 2 measures. So insert, and now I'm going to hit the stop button to exit the record feature, and I'm going to hit play so you can hear the new song. Alright, that's pretty simple and it worked according to plan. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to go ahead and edit the song, and I'm going to delete the funk patterns I just inputted. So I'm going to go to the 6th measure where I inputted it. I'm going to hit delete. Okay, so as I deleted that particular measure, it pulls everything backwards. So I'm going to delete the other pattern, which is the other part of the funk pattern. Once again, it was a 2-measure pattern, and it's going to completely delete the funk pattern I just inserted. So that's done. So if I go back and play the song, you're going to hear that there's no longer that funk pattern. Alright, simple enough. Here's where it gets a little difficult, is when you try to insert a pattern inside a measure within a pattern, some crazy stuff begins to happen. Well, not really that crazy, it's just a little confusing. And here's what happens. If I go back into the middle of, say, the rock pattern and I insert the funk pattern, what happens is for the remaining of the rock pattern, it's overlaid with the funk pattern. And then it adds the two measures of the funk pattern again. So it's kind of a weird process. So all of a sudden it's going to be intro, rock measure 1, rock measure 2, and then it's going to be funk pattern measure 1, funk pattern measure 2, and then funk pattern measure 1, and then funk pattern measure 2, and then the rest of the song. Then you're going to have the hard rock pattern, so on and so forth. So it's kind of a weird way of programming, but once you get your mind around it, it's actually not that difficult. So let's go ahead and let's do that. Let's go ahead and insert the funk pattern essentially in the middle of the rock pattern. So right there, the first measure is the intro. Second measure is the first measure of the rock pattern. The third measure of the song is the second measure of the rock pattern. And the fourth measure in the song is the third measure in the rock pattern. And if we insert the funk pattern here, the process that I just previously described is going to occur. All right, I'm inserting. Now I'm going to exit. And you're going to see what I'm talking about. The reason why I'm explaining this in detail is because something confusing can happen when you're trying to edit a particular song. When you go and insert let's say a two measure pattern like the funk pattern in the middle of, say, that rock pattern, some people may think, oh, I'm just going to put the two measure pattern, that two measure funk pattern where that rock pattern, the rest of those two measures in that rock pattern lived, and it'll just overlay those two rock pattern measures, and then after that's done, the hard rock pattern will begin. So they'll think it's going to sound like, okay, intro, rock measure 1, rock measure 2, funk measure 1, funk measure 2, and then hard rock measure 1, hard rock measure 2, hard rock measure 3, hard rock measure 4, so on. But it doesn't quite work that way. If you did want to do what I just previously described, where you're going to replace the rock measure 3 and measure 4 with the funk measure 1 and measure 2, what you would need to do first is go and delete rock measure 3 and rock measure 4 in the song, and then where the hard rock pattern begins, you insert the funk pattern. So then it would be intro, rock measure 1, rock measure 2, funk measure 1, funk measure 2, and then the rest of the song, hard rock 1, hard rock 2, hard rock 3, so on and so forth. So you would want to go through that process in order to accomplish replacing the last two measures of the rock pattern with the funk pattern.